And my father said, when I was younger, hard times breed better men. You took it all away, I give it all away. Can't take my freedom. Here to change the game, a banner made of pain. I built my kingdom. Now, you bow to me. You took my dreams, but not my name. You'll follow me until the end. I am my kingdom.
And I said, psychosis!
This one's for all pals and O'Neill. Start to feed from the jaws of victory with the hot dog and the chili cheese. Distraction. Hey, podcast. Happy word filled. Wins and losses, don't need shit. So what shifts the grins? Just do his bit. Distraction. Hey, roll up. 1, 2, 3.
Hello, welcome everyone to the distraction.
That was fantastic.
Confirmed shoot, our buddy with the morning of Cody there.
Oh man! Wow, I mean, look, it almost feels like we have a great guest today, and he is booked. Connor is booked, paying off the last card open, but like he hadn't seen that before, and I feel like you must be sitting there thinking, "What do I do now? How do we follow that?" I'm thinking the same thing.
It just kept going. I thought, it'll do the first 2 lines. No, keep going. Dang it.
Yeah, I mean, just amazing stuff.
I told Connor before we started, I was like, you're getting the full distraction experience today. Like, we got a cold open. O'Neill's going to be here at 4 for the corner 3. Like, you come on the show, you got to know what to expect, Connor.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I knew there'd be craziness and all that.
Connor Casey from Comic Book is here. As you saw last week from the cold open, he's booked. Joseph promised he would be booked. He has been booked. Here we go. Joseph, guys, how are you?
I'm good, but Connor, yeah.
Sorry, I was just saying, guys, I'm living proof that if you tweet your favorite podcast hosts, maybe, just maybe, they'll let you on the show. So keep doing it.
No, don't tell people that. Don't tell people that.
The thing I love about Connor is that he doesn't do tricks. He just jumps. You know, he jumps. No, it's it was inevitable. You got a blue tick, man. Do you know how desperate Jeremy and I to attach ourselves to blue tick, man? It's that thing, Jeremy, right?
No, I'm not selling out for the blue tick.
I am.
Out for it. No, people keep messaging me like, when are you gonna ask to be verified? So never. I'm not selling out. I'm here with the commenters, Joseph.
I respect him. I can't relate, but nonetheless, apparently we got some wrestling to talk about, so we should probably get to that. But yes, shout out to Confirmed Shoot. We did a pre-show with him before this thing here, which went about an hour and a half. You can get that for free on the Patreon. What's the link? What's the
Patreon.com/the
distraction. There you go. So you can get that over there. But this is the flagship. So here we go.
You can also go to patreon.com/Fightful Select, where Sean Ross Sapp broke the news of Pete Dunne's contract, which we'll talk about a little bit later on. Guys, get your super chats in, like our buddy JJ here. JJ says, hello to my favorite big stars. Hope you're doing well. AEW Nitro was good. Honor is truly real with Dixie Carter and not Jeff Jarrett. Love you both. Dixie Carter breaking down the Forbidden Door, showing up on Ring of Honor last night.
Imagine if people watched it. They would be fired up.
Hey, Honor is real, Joe. You believe that.
Listen, man, it's a hell of a show, but it's not ideal that I promote it better than they do. It's not ideal. They should probably change that, you know?
Ricardo El Idolo del Distraction says here for the big stars and Connor Casey. Connor's a bigger star.
Bigger star than both of us, man. Come on.
Come on. Not true. I don't have a award-nominated podcast at my disposal. And y'all better vote for these guys when the Observer Awards come around.
Right, man.
This is a wrestling show. Exactly. We have a banner.
This is a wrestling show, no doubt about it. You're correct. There you go.
We have better angles than WWE, without a doubt.
Yeah,
that's not bar.
We're not competition with them, man. They're way up. They're down below us too much. We're competing with the real titans of storytelling, right? The all elite fleet. That's where we're at. There you go.
Killing NXT UK in the ratings right now, easily. I think like 2 people are watching that show. We got over 3,000 watching our show right now.
Wow. Is that true? I hope not. I was going to say Connor really is a big star.
Wow. I didn't think I had that kind of pull.
I should have said 3 million, but that's all right. What can you do? All right, let's get into it. AEW Dynamite last night. Cody Rhodes is retired. That's it. Connor, what your favorite Cody Rhodes memory after his retirement last night?
My favorite memory was him getting kicked off the top rope and flying through the table.
It was tremendous. No, you're right. That was one of those visuals where as wrestling fans, like we get it, right? You couldn't move the table in position because it would give away the spot. But it looked a certain way. But listen, credit to him, right, Connor? I mean, if you had any doubt about him doing business the right way, I mean, he did it with Brody, obviously, but like this was foot on the chest, man. That was a sight, right, Connor?
Oh, 1,000%. Like I thought my feed had broken up when it's like, wait, he just got up and the kick and that was it. What did I miss?
Right.
And it's like, no, it's another squash for him. And we know the score here. We know Go Big Show's got a second season coming up.
Right.
What do you guys make of the whole retirement aspect of it? Because I'm struggling with it because he's made it very clear in the past. He's been like, look, I want to retire at 40. There's other stuff I want to do. So in terms of in-ring action, that's when I hang up. He's 36.
Right.
I didn't buy this retirement thing for a second, but it's like you're bringing this up now while your 50-some-odd-year-old brother is still very much a part of this.
Yeah.
I think who was it? Palowski made some great points about it last night where it could tie into, oh, he's trying to be magnanimous after the loss. And then Malachi runs back in and says, no, you freaking don't. You don't get to have this moment. This was about me. And maybe you can play that into it. That's the best I'm hoping for.
I don't know, Jeremy, you got any strong... I think like I mentioned a little bit before we got on the air here, I think my perspective on this is different than the majority. But Jeremy, what about you? Where are you at on this first?
I thought he was going to NWA. I thought he was going to be like, you know what? I've done everything I can do here in AEW. NWA 73 is coming up. Like,
there you go.
Nick Aldis. Let's go. Let's do this rubber match.
This might make me sound like an idiot, but I was confused by this line. He says, I wanted to win back the title that they took from my dad at the Garden. I'm like, was he talking about the NWA heavyweight title? He didn't lose it at the Garden.
I think he was referencing like Dusty's bouts with superstar Billy Graham. I think the Garden. Okay. I think that's what he was going for. Or he may have just meant in the sense they would never make him the champ because obviously he was Dusty. I don't know if it was direct or not, but I've said on this show that I think Cody sees himself differently than most do in a positive way for once. And there's negatives to that too, but I really believe that in Cody's mind, he had his top guy run with New Japan and Ring of Honor and a little bit of New Japan too, right? He was a top guy there because of basically his political cachet. I think he sees this promotion as bigger than any title he could win in the ring. And while I think he will wrestle a few times a year at least for the next decade and more, I do think look, man, let's be real about this. Look at that roster now compared to when it started, and then imagine what it's going to look like in 2 months. Like, I think Cody's self-aware enough to realize that he probably, at this point in the game, I think he's comfortable stepping back. Now, what I'll say is the Dustin point's a great one because I always remember Dustin saying, he goes, listen, I'm a talent. I like coaching talent. I like being talent. Cody loves that office stuff. I never liked that. Mm-hmm. And that tells you a lot about Cody enjoys the rush of getting a TV deal over the line. He enjoys the rush of getting talent in the door. I'm not saying he's done. He's going to work Malachi Black again. I assume in 3 months, 6 months, whatever it may be.
Yeah.
I think he's further away from putting himself as the guy on this show than people realize. I thought that beforehand. And the result of that was, guys, to be frank, I have no shame in admitting it. He kind of worked me here. I really thought he was pretty striking television. Like, not that I thought something was going to happen. What I mean by that was, so often in wrestling, we know the playbook, right? Oh, they're going to do this. This is going to happen. I was sitting there waiting. It was uncomfortable. It was and I said, look, that was strong TV, even if I always knew there was a twist. The question is, and this is probably the bigger topic we touched on, Connor, the question is, was the twist simply a case of, hey, Cody's going away for a bit, let's make sure Malachi gets the last laugh anyway? Or was it a renege on what he said before? That's what I guess we'll find out. But right now, instincts here, Connor, when will Cody next wrestle?
I hope he's gone for longer than the Brody match.
Yes.
Because as much as I love the dog collar, that whole angle, it felt really quick.
Yes.
For how soon he was gone and then how quickly he came back, and the hair, and I'm trying to make this a Reign of the Supermen reference, which nobody got. I didn't get, and I'm the comic guy. I would hope he's back leading up to Double or Nothing next year, because we talk about the free agents that may or may not be coming in, and that wave's all going to come here between now and Full Gear. And they kind of like to look at their year in these quarterly chunks where they'll start building up the next group of storylines after the big pay-per-view. I think that's when he starts coming back around. If not right after the first of the year, right before it. That's my
That makes sense. What about you, Jeremy?
I've seen people say they're returning to Jacksonville end of the year, December 29th, I believe. And people are saying like, oh, this is like kind of like their Starrcade. One final show before the end of the year back in Jacksonville, which is their home base and everything. So people have kind of said like, I think this is where Cody returns. I think he's off until at least then. Like you said, Double or Nothing, Connor. I was like, oh, wow. Like that seems like very far away. And I'm for it. Joseph, you made up a good point of Cody's position in this universe, in the AEW universe right now is, before he was the top babyface, maybe number 2 behind Jon Moxley, right? Like now it's like you got Moxley still there. Eddie's on a roll. Darby's been boosted. You're bringing in potentially Punk and Bryan. That's
Hangman.
5 guys. Yeah, Hangman's been boosted. Like that's 5-6 guys where it's like Cody just isn't at the top of that list anymore. And I don't think he wants to turn heel. I really don't think he wants to turn heel and kind of roll in with the elite guys and then go back on not getting a title. He's been very adamant of like, I'm not challenging for that title. They did that stipulation for the reason. Go ahead, Connor.
So my thing is, I think he underestimates the fact that there is a storyline worth telling where he turns heel, wins that world title, and is the number 1 heel in the company for a bit. Right. There's money to be made there, and I think they're leaving it on the table. And I also think that's part of why we talked about it off air, the whole Codyverse thing, how he's very much in this own bubble. I think that's kind of self-imposed because he goes, well, if I can't wrestle for the world title, why am I interacting with anyone that could possibly be involved with that? I feel like he's holding himself back in a few ways.
I actually agree, and I think people believe we're insane for saying that because the perception around Cody, and some of it, look, let's be real about this. Cody is a guy that in his own presentation earns the reputation of a dude that loves the center of attention. That's fair. But there's more to it, and it doesn't have to be black and white. And it's like, that's hilarious to say that after the whole Malachi Black feud was like, I wear white, you wear black. If you didn't get that by now, folks.
Tree on fire and lights.
Yes, exactly. That was amazing. So I agree with you, Clive. This is where, with AEW, and I have to kind of retrain my mind on this too, because it's not been this way in a non-WWE promotion for over 20 years. There are some money stories that are just not going to get told. And that's a shame. Like, so for example, everyone knows I'm a Kingston guy. I don't know if you can reasonably do the story of Kingston winning the big one with this roster. I don't. You're getting CM Punk and Daniel Bryan. But that's a good problem to have. So when you look at Cody as a heel, you and I, immediately, and Jeremy, I think, with us, we go, man, imagine that. He sells his soul. He gets FTR and MJF maybe with him or some other faction. But in fairness, I could say to that, but what if we do that with MJF? What if we have Miro as the world champion? What if we have Malachi Black as world champion? Now, the key to that is they're the guys you want to keep happy because they're the talent that isn't EVP. So, like, this is a thing that's developing. And I really believe people can laugh. I may be proven completely wrong on this. I really think when this super elite thing ends, Kenny and the Bucks are going to do a similar thing. I really believe that, man. I don't think Kenny intends to be vying for Best Wrestler in the World Awards after this run. His body is such that, like, you're going to see him on the show. He's a top guy. Yeah. To me, these are just the runs they feel like they needed to have, and they're going to make some guys at the end of it. And then, like, a new era is probably too strong. It's such a young promotion. But, like, I just think people underestimate how many stories there are to tell, if that makes any sense. And maybe Cody is too far that way where he's cutting himself off. But, like, listen, man, I'm in on Miro being world champ. I'm in on even Andrade starts clicking. He's the same thing. So there's so many options that maybe the EVPs go, look, we're covered already. We've done our job. We've won our game.
My only counter to that is that they kind of had that attitude there in the first 18 months or so.
Yes.
And what was the big complaint? It was, hey, we tuned into this show because we like Cody, we like the Elite,
Absolutely.
we like Kenny. Why aren't they being pushed
Mhm.
like these top guys? And they've all openly admitted it. They resisted the idea of the Bucks winning the tag titles, of Kenny, doing what he's doing now. And then when they pull the trigger on it, look at that. We're in the hottest period this company has seen so far. I don't know if the ratings are out today, but it's probably going to hit 1 million again.
Yeah, and that's where you get into this thing of like, will it be easier to do it this time with their roster where it is now? So I talk a lot about how a lot of us mention that kind of that period before Revolution 2020 as being like a golden TV run. Remember when they did the Atlanta show with the cage match? A lot of us were like, oh man, they're clicking. And then the pandemic hit.
Mm-hmm.
To give you guys some perspective, Revolution opened with Dustin Rhodes versus Jake Hager. Brother, that match is like, if that gets put on Dynamite, we're like, man, it's that roster. It's not even a turnover because no one's really left. It's just a case of like, with each All Elite graphic that hits our feed, you don't realize collectively this is a monster they're building here. Like, this is one of the great rosters. So I think you're absolutely right. I just think, transitioning from Cody or Kenny to Punk and Bryan, now that's some big players. So it'll be interesting to follow, though, for sure.
Is there blowback because Connor mentioned it, of when AEW started, people were like, well, we want the Elite guys on top. This is their promotion. This is what we want. And they resisted that. They finally got on top. They're having a great run. I feel like personally, they've built up the roster underneath these guys enough to where, like, once, because I know you've been adamant that, Joseph, that like once the Bucks and Omega lose their titles, that they're just going to disappear for a little bit. Have they built up the roster enough to where, all right, if Cody's gone, if the Young Bucks and Omega are off television, and it is Moxley, Kingston, Hangman, Punk, Bryan, are people in Darby, Miro, are people going to be like, all right, well, where are the Elite guys? These are too many ex-WWE guys, whatever it might be. That's going to be a complaint. It always is. It's going to be, there's too many ex-WWE guys. I need the Elite guys back. Or have they established it enough of like, these aren't really ex-WWE guys anymore. Like, these guys are so hot right now that they're just kind of on their own.
Connor, I apologize for jumping ahead here, but I have to say, to give you perspective on how, like, listen, I don't want to make this a Fed bad show. Everyone knows I'm done with those conversations, but like, Malachi Black, to me, and I think he would co-sign this, I think he did something more significant last night than he did in 2 years on the main roster. To me, he's already an AEW guy to me now. And he says himself, he'll talk a lot about, and I know people scoff at his interviews, but there's stuff in there worth listening to. He goes, NXT was great. I felt there was a purpose to it. He goes, the main roster, I was just doing stuff, man. Like, 1 week I'm doing this, 1 week I'm doing that. There was no reason. There was no kind of progression. That's the thing. You can so easily reframe these guys as AEWs. Now, I'll say, by contrast, I think Andrade needs to get going. I don't know what they're doing with Andrade. He's kind of being booked as a guy they don't want to wrestle, when it's like, for his whole career, he's the opposite of that, right? Like, you get in the ring, you let him do his thing. So I think if you do creative, like, to me, the idea of Moxley being an ex-WWE guy at this point is like,
well, he's just Dean Ambrose with,
exactly right. That's really a thing that we hear. I mean, I have to say, guys, in fear of transitioning away from Cody here, to me, that 6-man last night was peak TV wrestling, in the sense that you knew the result, and it was just, here are some guys you love kicking ass, and you got to see these other guys that just turned up in the territory and they were themselves. Like, I think execution is everything, man. And to me, all of these guys feel like AEW. I don't know if you agree, kind of, like, to me, it's just like, they're here now. They're part of the system,
Yeah, that was as fun of a squash match as I've ever seen.
Yes.
It nailed every note they were playing. I love, you got a guy like Garcia who, if you listen to John Alba talk for more than 5 minutes, he will bring this guy up, and it's somebody that's like, yeah, they need to sign him with a quickness. And Everrise, 2.0 was always funny, but just to see Darby, Mox, Eddie just shine and each get their own little highlight spot, and then they're all standing there with Sting just doing you can't replace that. And I'll steal. I was tempted to write a feature similar to what Joe Hulbert can often be found writing, and it was, the wrestling world right now feels like a party. So why is Raw so boring? Why does the rest of the wrestling world right now feel like this big celebration, all of this fun energy? And Raw just doesn't have that. And it's so inexplicable. And Dynamite last night was a perfect example of that.
Yeah, it's not. Go ahead, Jeremy.
Well, I mean, we had last night an NWA women's title eliminator. Like the NWA women's champion was there. Camille was there. The Impact tag team titles are going to be defended next week on the show. You've got New Japan guys showing up randomly. Like, yeah, it does feel like Dynamite is just kind of friggin' Juventud Guerrera straight out of 90s WCW is wrestling in the opener. Like, yes, it is just, hey, if we've said this many times on the show, like, if you're just like looking for anything, whether it be nostalgia, whether it be something from a different company, like whatever it might be, you'll probably find it on Dynamite. And it does just feel like a celebration of wrestling a lot of times.
There's your answer, man. And I was going to go the exact direction you went, Jeremy. It's like what they've done here, and it isn't going to show in the ratings. It just shows in our enjoyment of the show, I think, this particular thing. Obviously, the ratings are going well, but this is like it's a very individual thing that those of us that have covered wrestling and watch it all the time know. Is like WWE's thing has always been we're our own universe. And AEW's reaction to that after about a year was, okay, sure, well, we're going to be the center of the wrestling world. And in my mind, this is not for everyone, I can only speak for myself. To me, that's created a system where, like, even though SmackDown is much more critically acclaimed than Raw, all of WWE stuff now does feel like isolated, like they've taken themselves out of the game almost, you know?
Yeah.
And you have this thing where, as Jeremy mentioned there perfectly, like, dude, we go from Tanahashi to Meng one segment after the other. I mean, it feels like, you know, you said wrestling party. Yeah, it's like a festival. Sting's in there with Eddie Kingston. No one really knows why. Who cares? You know, they wrestled 2.0. It's vibrant and energetic and open in a way that WWE just, frankly, with the way their system works, it can't be that way. It just can't be.
WWE doesn't even connect their own universe. You have the NXT champion.
Yes, that's the problem.
To Keith Lee on Raw. Like, they don't even connect their own universe.
That was kind of why I was hoping Jack Crosby would be here, because I have some words for him about a certain NXT champion.
We can get into that. I'm interested because, like, I'm further distance from it all than you probably are. Yeah. I watch NXT each week because I love Samoa Joe, and I'm happy to see him back in the game. And I really truly mean that. I would suggest, Connor, that it's not ideal that his whole thing is he has to slay the unbeatable champion, and that champion has been beat twice on TV. But I am, merely a bystander here. What is your thoughts on that whole thing? Because I'm genuinely interested.
Yeah. So Cross never did it for me. I watched bits and pieces of him when he was in Impact as Killer Cross. It seemed fine. I felt bad for him regarding that whole situation of him trying to get out of the company. And then when he did, it's like, okay, cool. What do you do now? Oh, I'm going to NXT. Okay, sure. Give it a shot. And it's funny how they've had their own wrestlers on their own show point out his shortcomings, in that it's for a show that helped. Edge said it best in a promo and then had a stare down with Cross. It's like, in this brand, we care about that second W in WWE.
Right.
And here you are being all pomp and circumstance. And no real what's the substance to back it up.
Yeah.
And I think it kind of clicked with me, not so much at the In Your House 5-way, but right after, it's that he doesn't sell. He doesn't sell when any of his opponents try to hit him with moves. And when people say, okay, what's the best Karrion Kross match? Oh, it's the Finn Balor one, where he actually sold when Finn tried to kill him.
See, this is where I completely agree with that critique, but this is where I wonder about their, like, system, okay? Because we hear the interviews. Sometimes what happens is he may be attached to Michael Hayes or Terry Taylor, or whoever, I don't know who it is, and they may say, listen, don't sell for Gargano. He's too small. Like, just do a stagger, get back. And sometimes what happens is they have all these different people pulling in different directions, and you'll hear this stuff. Like, I remember vividly Batista talking about how they told Bryan after Mania to not sell the night before. Like, to not sell the fact that he had 2 matches up front. He was like, he wrestled Triple H, Randy Orton, and Batista. And I sit there and say, why the hell wouldn't you have him sell? Well, they wanted him to do the yes thing. So sometimes that stuff is like a self-inflicted wound. Now, I will say, equally likely, Connor, is, as you kind of referenced there, like, he's just not. I mean, NXT has had these wonderful workers and these incredible. He's just not that guy, and that's fine. The issue with that is he was an NXT champ that was almost handpicked as, this is one that will work on the main roster. And I mean, we're 3 weeks into that thing, and that appears to be a complete wasted. So I guess the next question is, and Jeremy, you can hit this. I don't know if you're even interested in it, but like, I keep circling this Samoa Joe match, and I'm just like, no one loves Samoa Joe more than me, man. But I don't know if this is the answer. Like, what do you think, Jeremy? Am I wrong on this?
And you asked this, I think, on Twitch, Joseph. Maybe it's private. Now I'm bringing it up here publicly. You're like, do you think like Samoa Joe like watches Raw and it's just like, hey, I'm about to face this guy in 2 weeks. Like, can we not beat him in 30 seconds? So this title victory or his victory over me means a little bit more. And like, I personally don't think Joe watches and cares and is part of that. They probably just think NXT is its own little universe. And again, that's the disconnect that is there of like, well, we have the NXT universe, which is different from the WWE universe. So what you see on Raw, which is seen by more people, doesn't actually matter on this little vanity brand that Paul is running down here, which, you know, not good. Like if the NXT champion's going to come out and he's going to wear the title, if you don't want it to matter, like don't have him wear the title. Don't put the logo and the graphic and everything up there. Just have him come out, have him lose and act like he's just some new guy you never heard of before, whatever. But you're wearing the title, you're doing the logo, you're sort of referencing it on television, and then you're beating him. I have the interest in this match is just it's Samoa Joe's return, right? It has nothing actually to do with, hey, cool, Samoa Joe, Karrion Kross, NXT championship. And I was not as down on Kross as a lot of people like when he first signed. I thought there was some good stuff in Impact. I thought if you booked him correctly as kind of this like silent killer kind of guy, I thought he could be very good. They did the weird stuff with the entrance and then, oh, I'm an MMA guy and she gives me powers and all of that. Jack Crosby had the out of the world idea that apparently is legit. And they wanted to go with this real thing where he keeps losing until Scarlett comes up to the roster. Jack Crosby's writing the shows, which God only knows.
My counter to that argument is whatever happened to first impressions? Because if that Jeff Hardy match was the first time you had seen Kross in a ring, and according to how big the audiences are, that's quite a few number of people. He's not nothing special. He's a guy that, he can lose via roll-up like anybody else on this roster.
Yeah, and this is the funniest part is like, I agree with the broader kind of point that, man, like just beating everyone's boring anyway. But in some cases, like, listen, to disregard the idea of a big bald guy beating everyone for a couple of years when Bill Goldberg keeps getting brought back, like, I know what you can do. I mean, at the end of the day, my God, Jeff Hawkins is in here. That seems bad. What's he doing watching this terrible show? But at the end of the day, some guys you need to protect, and sometimes those are the guys that can make you some money. Now, look, frankly, my read on Kross is he's not a guy that's going to – I just don't think he's that guy. But, like, you could even use Keith Lee as an example, right? So, I just my instinct that when that match happens, man, I'm going to be sitting there rooting for Joe like I'm an old woman at a Crockett show. I'm going to be there ready to go. But I don't know if when you're trying to – let's be real about it. NXT has been put deeper in a hole by this whole thing. It's a saga now, and it's what everyone's talking about. When you're trying to pull it out of that and resurrect it, as much as we all love Joe, he was the NXT champion 5 years ago. Like, we can't, he's not wrestled in over a year. So I wonder about that whole thing, but we've probably talked about NXT enough, so my bad. But it's interesting. Go ahead.
I know it's banned. I'm sorry I'm breaking the rule, but I feel like the Joe match, I'm not very concerned or even that interested in how the match is bell to bell. I'm more concerned about if this is how you get the belt off Kross and you put it back on Joe, does this get NXT out of the funk that has very obviously been in for a while? Because as a brand, you can only go so far with one identity when your top guy is the opposite of that. Joe takes you back into the world where, no, it is substance over style, and he's got plenty of both. Yeah. And any match he's going to have now is exciting. And whoever legitimately walks up and says, hey, I want to challenge you. Oh, that's a match I want to see. Not, Kross is going to fight Kyle. Poor Kyle. Yeah,
so this becomes the bigger question, right? So so we leave SummerSlam weekend with Joe as champ. Okay, that's fine. Who do we, because Joe is merely a stock. He's like a bridge, right? Like, you need to then pick a guy. And look, as much as I love all these dudes, I don't think, circling back to Johnny or Ciampa or even Cole, frankly, is the answer.
Well, his
They might not have that option.
Yeah, well, yeah, we can get into that. But I mean, do you pick Kyle O'Reilly or do you go like Swerve? Do you go Santos Escobar? Like, it feels like you got to roll the dice at some point, man. That's what NXT was all about, making guys.
I think that's how you get Kyle the title finally, because he's just been in that picture for too long for it to not. You could talk me into Ciampa going back to God tier level heel and getting the title one more time, because it has always bothered me how we never really capitalized on that again. That was the hottest era of NXT. And
definitely,
he comes back, and it's like, and we just kind of forgot that he was the best thing going, and now he's messing around with Thatcher, which good on him. They're having good tag matches, but this is not what you could be.
Yeah, that whole thing was weird because, so correct me if I'm wrong on this, but he came back when they were on USA, right? He was back from injury at like the start of 2020.
I was there the night he came back. It was that October 29th, legit head-to-head with Dynamite.
Okay, so there you go. So he's a real victim of them not being able to plan out tapings, because I remember at one point, and we spoke about this on a show not long ago, like he turned heel and like beat up a babyface and was like, I'm gonna kind of be this like bitter old guy on NXT, and then he feuded with a heel, so just became a babyface, and like they do this stuff all the time. Dude, and you know what? Honestly, as much as we've had fun about banning NXT, I actually like the show, and that's why I'm happy to talk about it. I think it's a good show, but there are little things they do, like Hit Row. I pointed out a few weeks back. I said you're going to need a flipping babyface because there's no one else in the show that's cool as them or as interesting as them. Flip them, and their way of doing that is always just, well, we'll just put them against heels, and it's like at some point you end up with a show where everyone's like a bad guy. You need to have some sense of morality, and that's what I mean. To me. Listen, I'm all for shades of grey, and Bob O'Neill loves the tweet where he explains that there's, no babyface and heels. But like, listen, man, you need some sense of heart and soul. You need a guy that like the audience senses is a good guy. That is so far gone from that product.
Or maybe you just turn around and remember, oh, hey, we have the greatest Japanese junior heavyweight right over here.
I have a problem with that. I must say, I was writing about NXT this week, and I was like, listen, I'll watch Roderick Strong, Kushida wrestle in my back garden. Right? I think they're two of the great wrestlers of the last 20. I love them both.
Right.
It feels like a little outdated to me that's the cruiserweight. Like that feels like something that NXT shouldn't be doing, man. Like that whole thing, that whole brand has been cruiserweights. I think those guys can hang in world title matches. Of course they can. It's Kushida and Roddy Strong. So I'll watch those matches, but I have to say, it did cross my mind, like, is that really NXT? Them guys are just cruiserweights now? I don't know. It's a weird one.
You mentioned, the heel and face, and we had the joke of going into the NXT in your house. Is Karrion Kross a heel or is he a baby face? We couldn't figure it out.
He attacked a defenseless William Regal.
He's a heel now, yeah.
Well, yeah, he's a heel now, but going into TakeOver, it's like, well, which one is he? Because Adam Cole is just roasting this guy, and he kind of feels like, all right, maybe Cole's the baby face. We determined, okay, Kyle O'Reilly was like pretty much the only babyface in that match. And of course, he's the one who looks like the biggest dork. But now Kyle O'Reilly, you mentioned the sense of morality is like, Kyle O'Reilly now feels like he's just attacking Adam Cole and doing, I understand Cole did it first, but like he just lost the match. And that's why you're attacking him now. Like they tried to make Kyle O'Reilly cool Kyle, and it didn't work at all. I don't think that was the right thing for him. Now he's just like the rest of them of like, hey, I'm just going to kind of attack this guy if they did it to me first or whatever. It's like you need an actual just kind of like white meat baby face kind of on that show, and they don't have any of that. You
know what it's like? Listen, hear me out here, guys. I'm going to go off the rails a little bit. Okay. When you're looking for something for a long time, say you've lost your phone or your keys, and you're walking around, you're looking everywhere. Where are these? And then you ask someone, they go, they're right here, dipshit. Here they are, they hand them to you. Sometimes, man, you can get lost in your own, just like you're going from one thing to the next, one thing to the next. NXT needs a booker to come in, and I mean a booker. I don't mean 45 writers that have different ideas. I mean a booker, because that's what that show worked best as, when it was being booked. Mm-hmm. You need a booker to just come in and be like, we need to reset. And until they give someone that, I'm not even going to criticize Triple H about this, because I think he's an example of what I just said, where he's lost in it all. Like, he's trying to adjust all the time. Oh, they've taken this guy, I need to do this now. Rather than taking a big picture look at the problems we just said about lack of babyface and saying, we need to make a guy, he's trying to survive the next month. And that's when you end up with a Samoa Joe. Does that make sense? Like, he's basically trying to stay afloat. And that's the result of when you get into a wrestling war, that I don't think they realized that was going to be what it ended up being. I didn't. I'll be frankly, I thought NXT was positioned to kick AEW's ass. I've said this on the show before. I really believe that. And it didn't go that way. And they found themselves turning left and right to change things. So I think basically now they're on Tuesdays, they'll be very well served. Obviously, Triple H is not leaving NXT yet, but he's going to be there. He will be very well served to me to getting a new voice. And maybe it's an Adam Pearce going down there. Maybe, I don't know who, you know. But I just
Shawn
think there's
Michaels with his fucking ladders.
it's definitely not that. And sometimes you can just get lost in these kind of whirlwinds. I think Raw has been that for years now. At least with those shows, though, you have the draft to, like, you can reset then. Does that make sense? Like with this, they're just, to me, they're just going in a circle over and over again. It feels like it never goes anywhere. So that's probably enough for NXT now, I reckon.
Fair enough. But can we talk about how they're losing people like a sieve, apparently?
Yes, that should be our next big topic, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Let me catch up on super chats right fast. Bud Ryan says, banner day for the distraction. Pre-show seemed very cathartic, I guess. Luis was great on the before the Dynamite Patreon fire, moving out to live in the House of Black. Bud Ryan, great friend of the show, making the graphics.
Can we point out for a second that Black's new entrance theme is just Dutch black metal, and that's amazing?
That's awesome. Yeah, that's very cool. Yes.
Ricardo says Cody says he doesn't have a heel bone left in him. Cody's always been saying that. He keeps saying, like, I'm not going heel. I'm not going heel. I'm not going heel. This is how far
dude, that is such an elite phrase. Like, that basically just says that every other heel on the show has they've got like a piece of dick left in their body, but I am cleansed. I am pure from that.
Music and Moonsaults buddy Chris says that's why Rosenberg's take after the Hardy loss was so absurd. It's not about NXT, motherfucker. He's wearing the NXT title. Yes, exactly. Speaking of NXT, they're losing Adam Cole and Pete Dunne. They both signed with All Elite Wrestling. And he clipped up on that one. Adam Cole and Pete Dunne, apparently their contracts could be ending after SummerSlam. Sean Ross Sapp says that similar situation in that they may have expired. They may have agreed to a little short-term deal, and that's where they're at. We also know WWE released Bray Wyatt this past weekend. Connor, you have the top pick in the draft. You're Tony Khan. You have the number 1 overall pick like he did with the Jacksonville Jaguars. Who are you selecting with this top 3?
Nature Boy Ric Flair. No, I'm just kidding. Because you left him off the board. Man.
No one had him on the top 3.
I'm going to be honest. I agree.
I know you do. We talked about this on Twitch. We talked about, we're going to take Flair.
No, I would go with the Trevor Lawrence of that group, which is Adam Cole. He is established. He was the pillar of the NXT brand for so long. Of that group, he's the one that I don't see going back because it's very clear that he has hit his ceiling. And what more could he possibly do on that show other than just redo, hey, I'll be Triple Crown champion again. I'll break the NXT championship record again. No, I can't imagine that being fulfilling. You go back to AEW, hey, you're surrounded by your best friends that you hang out with at company parties anyway. You're surrounded by your significant other. You've got a storyline that goes back to everything with the Bullet Club and Ring of Honor, them murdering him on Being the Elites. Someone's got to make that joke, by the way, the first time he comes back. I thought you were dead. No, he's a perfect fit right there. Unlike on Raw or SmackDown, you can immediately slot him into the main event scene. He's the right guy. With Wyatt, man, I hope that guy goes and acts. I hope he goes and be in movies. Like, he could be a fantastic actor, because when you talk to people who are in the film industry who have worked with him, they go, it's been a long time since we've seen a creative mind like this. It almost feels like wrestling is not enough for him.
Yeah. Yeah, I tend to agree. Look, the thing with Adam Cole is I've been consistent. I expect him to stay. And the only reason I say that is the way that he's conducted it, I think he's an absolute class act. I think in his mind, I think AEW is familiar to him in a way that he still has that dream of WrestleMania. And while his brain may say the main roster won't go well, these guys believe in themselves, and he probably thinks, hey, I ain't Andrade. I'm not Aleister Black. I can do it, you know? Now, look, I think all of us analysts will say, I don't think it goes well for Adam. But he's got. I've believed he's going to stay. Now I'll say this though. I think he will be very upset this thing is out there because it is at a point now where I think it could hurt his. This is going to sound terrible. Hear me out. I think it could kind of hurt his standing with his own fan base if it's just announced he signed a 5-year deal. I don't think that's fair because it's his career, obviously. He should make the decision, that he wants to make. However, I think his fans are the ones that are watching Dynamite every week. And I think those fans would almost be like, fine. Okay, then you go enjoy yourself over there. And that growing perception as this story builds over the next 2 weeks and more, I think could be a real factor in his decision, frankly. And that, again, guys, that may sound harsh. I think it is harsh, But, you just laid out all the reasons. Kind of that, you've seen the talk online. That's what everyone's saying. They're saying you could be a bigger star in AEW. You've got the story with the Elite, Brits there. And I think perception is reality with that stuff. I think it's a dangerous part of the story for Adam Cole's, next career move. I've talked a little bit about the idea of him doing like a 1 year with NXT where he kind of waits for... Because, look, let's be real, man. CM Punk and Daniel Bryan, if they're coming into the territory, it's difficult for an Adam Cole anyway. But not that they couldn't use him. I'm just saying it's... Either way, the point is, I completely agree with you that he's the top of the big board. Both, honestly, just in general, but especially for AEW. God, there's so many, kind of pieces to play with there. So, no, I agree. Jeremy, I assume you have Bray at the top.
Of course I have Bray at the top. That's why wouldn't I? They need creative minds like Bray Wyatt. I mean, how many actual creative minds do they have in AEW on the level
waiting for that.
of Bray Wyatt? I had to re-find it. It's been so long since we've used it. Look, Bray can come in there and make the movies, right? Tony Khan just give him free reign. They're doing a bunch of production stuff with AEW. They want content to sign to HBO Max. That's the subscription service they're going to sign with, right?
Sell films.
Yeah, just sell films. Do the Bray Wyatt lore films with Aleister Black and everything.
I guess so. Yeah, maybe.
No, I'm taking Cole first. I think everyone knows that. I'm an Adam Cole baby guy.
Okay, so where are we at on Pete Dunne?
I think he's staying. I legitimately think Dunne is a guy who stays.
I agree, but where are we at on him as a talent?
Oh.
Where do we think, if you get him in because I'll give you my perspective first. I think he's a great match guy, but I mean, I could see him really struggling with how many great promos are in that promotion.
Yeah.
And I would, he's one of the few guys that are as great as he is that I may advise to stay there, frankly. Because you can tell Triple H, I mean, they love him in NXT. And that's a fair gig, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? How does a Pete Dunne look in an AEW potentially?
I would almost have him go to New Japan and New Japan Strong before I would AEW, just because, like you said, that field is getting crowded, and the one thing he's not great at is promos.
Yeah.
And Joe, you know this better than I do because I don't follow Brit Rest that well, but it seemed like he was able to...
Joseph.
I probably follow it as much as you.
It seemed like from what little I saw of progress, he was able to get around that fact when he was back in his home country. But
that's why I think New Japan's a good comparison on your part, because the idea would be if your product is here is the match on this date. Well, Pete Dunne's money in that because he doesn't miss. He can have good matches with us free.
Yeah.
But if you're doing a weekly product where you're alongside Moxley, Kingston, Darby, even with his vignettes, Sammy Guevara, all these guys, I could definitely see a world where he becomes not just another guy. I mean, he's Pete Dunne. But I think there's a lot to what you're saying. He feels like a guy that we all instinctually he's staying.
Yeah.
Right? He feels that way.
If he came in with the rest of British Strong style, I get it.
Yeah, that's the side of that. Yeah.
But the report didn't say anything about Bate or Seven situations.
The thing with this stuff is, I mean, the real story here obviously is, if we're being honest, AEW doesn't need anyone, let alone Cole and Dunne at this point, right? Their roster's beyond that, needing anyone. But I honestly think if you had Triple H draw up his favorite guys in NXT, I think there's a chance that Cole and Dunne top the list. And the fact that they've got in this position with them is listen, man, I don't want to give another weird analogy on this show, God forbid, but sometimes you can be so far ahead in a race, you don't realize how shitty you start racing. And suddenly now, there's a whole lot of holes in that system that are becoming obvious because there's another option. you know. And I don't mean to say, look, I don't want to dismiss TNA when I say that because they've been around for the last 20 years. But like, if you go and sign for TNA at the height of TNA, 2007, 2008, okay, well, your gig goes from I tour the world as a professional wrestler to sometimes I go down to Orlando studios and tape some TV. With AEW, brother, you're about to just do the same gig on another channel. 2 nights a week, live TV, big arenas.
No house shows, no house show loop.
And it's like, I think this is a situation we haven't had in over 20 years. And what you're seeing is WWE have kind of built in these weird, like, corporate issues that, frankly, because of their power over the rest, they've never had to pay the price for. I don't know if they're going to lose Cole or Dunn, but if this stuff's happening, man, like, it's not good. I mean, understatement of the year, but it's not good.
What shocks me about the Cole situation isn't that the story got out, because the story always gets out. It's that there wasn't an update the next day saying, yeah, he signed a new 5-year deal. The story the next day was, yeah, they haven't offered him an extension. And you go, how? Unless that's like, and I'm a Chiefs guy. That's like not signing Mahomes and going like, wait, when does your contract end? 2 days from now. What? Like, how do you get to that point?
I mean, I think there's a chance that that's just part of, like Cole has said to them, I'm going to get to SummerSlam, we'll talk. That may be it. But I'll offer a counterpoint that I think we probably at times as wrestling fans miss is like, dude, is there a chance that Nick Khan is sitting there and going, wait, so you're telling me he's this big star? Like NXT's doing 600,000 views. So like, why are we going to pay him $500,000 a year? As wrestling fans, that sounds outrageous to us. We know how great Adam Cole is, right? Mm-hmm. We know that it'd be a big deal for the other game in town. But like, I mean, you could say that Bray would be a big deal. You could say that Aleister Black would be a big deal.
Yeah.
Right now, man, it seems like they're looking at talent as just like name, number, you know? Like, and we have to remind ourselves of that because that's what they're at right now. They're cutting guys without any kind of hesitation.
It wouldn't shock me at all if that was the exact conversation that was had with Bray, and not just because of how much money he was making, but Khan looking at it and going, wait, how often is he off TV? How many matches is he actually doing? Well, we got to get rid of him. It doesn't matter that, you know, his family has been involved with this company for decades.
Yeah, and this is, I talked about this on one of the recent cuts. Sorry, Jeremy, I know I'm going and rambling here, but I just to put a bow on that, like, when there was cuts recently, and when this happens again, because it will happen again, unfortunately, I will try my best to be less kind of cynical about it, but we have to be honest about the situation. As a wrestling fan, I see Ruby Riott and I see Shotzi Blackheart, and I see 2 great pro wrestlers, and I can tell you which Ruby's better at and which, you know, Shotzi's better at. I don't think they like see any of that when they're looking at the books. They see, well, we could call Shotzi Blackheart, they fit a similar demo, they fit a similar profile, but Ruby's making this much. If we call, you know, Shotzi Blackheart, she can make a little bit less. We improve our books. Next quarter report, we have a better number. That's outrageous to me because my mind with wrestling is always talent. You see every talent as this is what that guy's ceiling is. I need to push him here. I think, you know, and I'll use a different example. I love Ruby. I'll use a different example. Braun Strowman. You know, to hear me, they may look at that and go, Braun's making almost 7 figures. But if we just push Omos or Karrion Kross, pushing Karrion Kross, good one. But, you know, we can get another big guy to do what Braun does. And the sad truth that we all have to kind of get used to is, unfortunately for now, that is the system they've built where they kind of can do that. That sucks. Don't get me wrong. I hate that. Wrestlers are the stars to me, always and forever. But, like, that's the point of having a system where the brand's the attraction, right? You don't need no stars. You are and that may backfire, but it is what it is right now.
I think that's the issue is that it's like starting to backfire and just how many viewers they continue to run off and everything because people are growing attached to these wrestlers, and then you release the wrestler. It's like, okay, well, you've let go of my favorite. The rest of your show kind of sucks. It's not like I'm attached to this other guy. So why am I tuning in? And, you know, they'll bring back Cena, they'll bring back Goldberg, and they'll get – but, like, Cena's back. Cena's on – you know me. I love John Cena. They're doing the same numbers they're doing on SmackDown before he was back or anything. They get the one-night pop, and then nobody, like, actually sticks around for this stuff because – I do think they are running off viewers by doing this kind of thing and being like, oh, yeah, Braun, even though we spent 5 years building him up, gave him a big Mania match, he was just in a world title match, we're just going to release him, and Omos is now the new Braun. People are like, I like Braun. I had an attachment to Braun. Now
Yes.
I don't care about Omos, so I don't care about watching your product now. Go ahead, Connor.
Of all people, the biggest company man Vince McMahon has ever had. Bigger than Hogan, bigger than Austin, bigger than Rock. The most loyal company man he's ever had is going on to an interview with USA Today and sneaking in a line. Because if you read the quote, it felt like, I'm going to sneak this line in right here that says, you can't keep relying on me if you want your future to be stable. I'm 44 and I've got another career that's making me a lot more money. I'm not always going to be around.
Mm-hmm.
But what are we looking at for SummerSlam right now? A match with him and a match with Goldberg.
Yep. And even Edge. Edge is in the third biggest male match. And here's the thing. We talk about it backfiring. Let's be real about this. If CM Punk goes back to WWE, that's a huge story for us to cover. Within 2 weeks, he's back in the system. Yeah, he's Edge.
Knew that. He said the same thing.
Here's the frightening part. If you care about, if you're Nick Khan, I guess, and he's watching the show, I hope not. But if he is, okay?
Yes.
Is that may be true for your system, but over there, because they treat their guys as attractions, CM Punk can have an event basically invented for himself and move 15,000 tickets. And that's when you get so in WWE's system, I don't know, everyone's not a Bray fan, I'm not either, but let's be real. In WWE's system, Bray was able to be a merch guy. What if in an AEW world where he can really cultivate that fan base, he can actually become a true needle mover in the sense of tickets and in the sense of ratings? What if Malachi Black, who has this loyal fan base that we've seen online that I think wasn't even into AEW before, that's paying attention on the social, again, might not show him ratings, but I think it's happening. What if a guy like that, rather than just being good for YouTube numbers, starts selling tickets? Because they're not going to have their legs cut out from under them over there.
Yeah. And
that's the big thing that I learned from CM Punk was he's not even showed up yet, dude. But the idea of him move that many tickets, that's unfathomable in WWE, man. The name on the marquee is SummerSlam. That sells the tickets. It's a different promotion, and the thing that may backfire is these aren't all wrestling people, and they may not realize that an Adam Cole, he may not move any of your numbers, but he can move some of theirs. And that's when you get into some interesting kind of, what could be. But hey, look, it's certainly not a boring landscape, right? Good Lord. Something's happening every other day.
Music and Moonsault says, number one, Adam Cole stand here. I'll support whatever decision he makes. He seems like he's very happy doing the party stuff, so that could be a big factor. Everyone knows I'm an up, down, down fan. The thing with that is I know Breeze is still able to do this stuff. They released Tyler Breeze though. They don't have a loyalty to the party stuff. Maybe Cole, he just oh man, I can't leave my guys Cesaro and Woods. Look, there ain't nothing stopping them from next go round looking at Cesaro's number and be like, wait a second, he's making this much. We're doing this with him. Yeah, he's gone. I understand it's a business. These things happen. If I'm Cole, sometimes you got to have that mentality though of they don't care about me that much. I've seen what they've done to my friends and my peers. I just got to look out for myself here. I understand. I don't want to leave my friends in the Uno, but they could just as easily release me as they've released any of them.
I mean, that's a thing, though, right? I mean, we don't have to. I don't think we're going out on a limb to say that when these guys negotiate now, they're going to remember Gallows and Anderson's famous story of, your future's safe here. These guys will talk, and it doesn't mean they won't sign for WWE, which is still the dream job, right? That's the one they grew up watching after all. And that's going to happen. Guys are going to go there, but you'd be a fool to think that stuff doesn't show to the wrestlers. We're all sitting here DMing each other. The wrestlers are doing the same. So it's a fascinating time. And you mentioned Ric Flair earlier in jest, Connor, but he's another reminder to me of just man, everyone's on the board, right? Unless they're Roman Reigns, would you be shocked at anything at this point? It's craziness, and it will go both ways. I'm sure eventually guys will go back the other way, and it will be vibrant and it will be exciting, and that's what I'm in the game for, man. That sounds fun to me. So we shall see how it all pans out.
Off-season stuff is always the most fun, right, Joseph?
Yeah, especially when your teams always upset you when they actually play games. So yeah, it's definitely.
What if Adam Cole just decided to go silent on NXT? He's just you know what? You guys kind of threw me under the bus at the last takeover.
Or is this a Ben Simmons bit?
Yeah. Just doesn't return Paul's calls at all. the Paul threw him under the bus. He's like can't really win with that.
I would buy an Adam Cole shirt immediately if he pulled that stuff. If we got a Sean Ross Sapp bomb about like Adam Cole stop returning calls, he will no longer be on NXT TV. That would be tremendous. But anyway, by the way, I love that we were going to do this like Dynamite talk, and in the end we did like 40 minutes on the free agency landscape of professional wrestling. But Connor said before the show, he's like, "Listen, man, Pete Dunne, pretty interesting story." Hell right, it was an interesting story. Listen to us. We've gone off 3 hours, but it's like it's so wild, guys. I don't know when you started covering pro wrestling, Connor, but when I started talking about this bullshit on Fightful, it was the most boring. Everyone was just signing, and it was like, the elite were out there doing everything. Now, my God, it's just the opposite. But anyway, what were you going to say, Carol? Sorry.
Since we might want to talk a little bit about what actually happened on Dynamite, other than fulfilling Eddie Kingston's childhood dream, apparently.
Was that the real Sting? Was that the real Sting though?
Hey, it looked pretty real. And then Darby was like, "You don't get to look long enough. I'm gonna kill you with my shoulder."
That spot ruled.
God.
Great spot.
So how do we feel about the All Out main event at this point? Because everyone is just assuming now that Christian making the mention of Kenny, that he's the main event right now. But if you put that on the poster right now, I don't think that's building the kind of hype they're hoping for. And the fact that they still went back to what they were doing with Paige makes me think, do the Christian match on the first Rampage or the second in Chicago, since you know it's a sellout. But still go ahead with Hangman at All Out. That strike the iron while it's hot.
So, firstly, I want to credit you, Connor, because you remembered that we put that in our headline, and we should probably talk about it sometime.
Next, actually.
I truly appreciate it. It's nice to have a professional on the show. Normally, it's
looking out for you.
Now, look, I'm going to say this much, okay? I don't think it's Christian. I think you are correct, Connor, in your kind of, like, you were talking about options. That feels like the United Center match to me, because while that show's built around, Punk, you need to, like, have something to advertise, right? Like, that's a massive match for a TV anyway. I'll say this, and before I go any further, I'll put the disclaimer that I do not particularly want this or think it makes sense. I do not dismiss the fact that Meltzer just randomly was like, yeah, Eddie Kingston, maybe. Like, I was like, I'll watch all of the shows, and I don't see where you're getting back to King. The last 2 C shows, he's won singles matches. He was on Dynamite in a 6-man with 2 of their biggest baby faces. I think there is a chance that they use Kingston as basically like, our crowd won't shit on that match,
right?
And listen, I wouldn't, as a Kingston fan, I think that I wouldn't really like that, because to me, you've hit that. I think you've gone that way too many times. Now, if that's like the thing you do with Eddie before he rebounds and beats Miro at Arthur Ashe, that works, right? It's another pitfall before he gets up. I would just say listen, we all know Dave. He's pretty open about who he talks to.
Yeah,
I would say it's not a coincidence that he said, it's not Hangman, it's Christian, which we all guessed, or maybe Eddie Kingston.
Yeah.
That's all I would say. But, I'm just throwing stuff out there.
A thought about that popped in my head last night, because Meltzer kind of doubled down. He didn't just say that not only is Hangman versus Kenny not the main event, Hangman's not even on the show right now. And it got me thinking, if there were ever a storyline where everybody in the back looks around and goes, feed fake stories to the media. A story that is as old as their world championship itself. I feel like that's when you pull the trigger on that and you go, feed Dave something false, play into the fact that people are disappointed, keep pushing Paige down so that when he finally gets up, everyone loses it.
Yeah. So real quickly, I'm going to put this super chat for Music and Moonsaults. Feels like they wrote Hangman off last night. Seems bad. We talked about the stories. Hangman's not in the main event. He's not even on the show, reportedly. I think if you're not doing it here, it's not that I'm losing faith that they're not going to do it. I understand he's having a kid. His wife's having a kid. And so he needs that leave and everything, making him the world champion. Is that what you want to do? I still say you make him the world champion, have Miro beat him on the next Dynamite. God didn't want him to be champion very long. But you can go back to it. My issue with all of this is if you're going with Kingston, we're a month out from this pay-per-view. You've got to strike on something right now. Like Christian, all right, I can kind of see you've been sort of building him up. He's a number one contender. I've always said Christian first Rampage. It doesn't look like they're going to go that route. That Chicago Rampage makes a lot of sense right there. If you're going Kingston, you have the thread from earlier this year, but there's been no inkling of like Kingston and Kenny over these last couple of months. And this goes back to an issue Joseph and I have talked about with their pay-per-views. It's like sometimes they're just like throwing stuff in these final couple of weeks and be like, hey, this is what we're going with. Come see our pay-per-view. And like, you can't always do that, especially with your world title, because the last world title match is like, hey, here's a triple threat match that we just kind of put together 2 weeks before, where Pac and Orange Cassidy had nothing to do with the world title picture leading up to this pay-per-view. I don't like that. I don't think that's good.
No, I agree. So I think in this case, last week we both thought that Hangman was the end game. I know Bob's supposed to be here. I don't care. We're going to keep talking about this. It's fun. Now, I think there is a chance that circumstance involved with Hangman, and I don't know what the situation is with his, soon-to-be kid, but I don't know. Now, it could also be, and I think this is fair, though I don't like it. I think there is a chance that they've just said, listen, guys, this Punk in Chicago thing is, it's transformative. We should just put Kenny on an undercard world title match, which I don't like this, but I get it. Now, the other option is, are we building to another multi-man tag? So last night, we saw Sting interact with Eddie and Moxley for the first time. Is there a chance you get some sort of insane 10-man tag where Sting is in that thing with those guys against the Super Elite? You throw maybe another babyface in there, maybe a Punk. I don't know who. Because we have to remember, when pay-per-views come around, Sting is he's in the booking list here. Like, he could be booked. He was in a tag last time. I don't think that's unlikely. The only reason I say it is because I think Punk and Darby is the main event of the show. So that takes Darby out, and, you take Sting out too. But I think we should be very aware that there's a chance they do a all-star tag. So it wouldn't surprise. Some people have mentioned Jay White and God versus the Elite. I wouldn't be shocked if you run that as your co-main behind, Punk and Darby. Or you could also, someone mentioned, I think earlier in the chat, you could easily circle back to Orange, who got completely robbed at the last pay-per-view. That has more story than Kingston at this point, which is dude, Eddie, he last interacted with Kenny a long time ago, 4 months.
Give or take,
Yeah, so there's a lot of options on it. So I agree with your main point, Jeremy, which was, and we talked about it before, I would prefer these pay-per-views for the conclusion of arcs, but I think we all have to kind of get used to they see TV as more important, so naturally they kind of conclude arcs there. I don't know. It isn't traditional.
Do they make the mistake of rushing Punk and Omega? If Punk shows up at that Rampage and then he turns around and goes, guess what I want? That nice Johnny belt you got right there.
Dude, I have to say, the idea of Punk doing that, losing, and then becoming the biggest dick would be absolutely incredible. Could you imagine Punk? He comes in, he demands a title shot, so you immediately set the table for this guy's kind of an entitled prick, right? But he's a babyface. He loses and immediately comes out. This place sucks anyway. I don't even need that belt. I'm the best in the world. I'm getting paid more than all these. I must say, I think there is a real chance that on day one, Punk, because he loves shocking people. You remember with Ring of Honor when everyone thought he was leaving the territory and he won the belt instead, and he was like, "I'm going to WWE with this thing."
And signs the contract on the belt.
There you go. Do not be surprised if he comes out there on the first show, Chicago, the hero, and he gets the mic and he's like, "I don't want to be here at all, but I'm getting paid so much money that I have to be." Drops the mic and leaves. There's a lot of move, and by the way, guys, it appears that Bryan Danielson's coming into the promotion too. There's a lot going on, and that's why. And I think they've earned our trust on this. I'm gonna do it, guys. I'm gonna trust the process regarding this whole thing, because man, is there a lot going on right now. It's certainly has you tuning in, right? Because remember with Hangman, I agree with Chris if I wrote him off last night. But remember, the whole point of that segment was I have something to say. He never got to say it, right? Unless I missed it. So there's a lot going on there. We shall see.
James Edward Smith says Camille wearing her highest heels popped me.
Yes.
The amount of women's stuff on the show is very promising to me, and it all worked.
I feel like it broke Layla there for a second because she walks up to her and then she looks down and goes, "Oh, you're wearing heels."
By the way, I do want to say Britt Baker's become a really good promo, and I think over the last 2 months she's actually leveled up again.
Yeah.
I think Red Velvet has really got an innate confidence to her, man. I remember vividly when they brought her out to replace Brandy for the Shaq stuff. And she cut that promo down the camera. I'm not saying she's like, going to win best promo or anything. Like she has a very natural, believable confidence and charisma. I really think it says a lot they trust her with that match next week. I hope it goes well because I think highly of both of them, obviously.
Yeah, it'll be. Oh, sorry.
You're fine. James Edward Smith always says, I think Malachi's damaged by WWE allows him to see what things in AEW look like WWE things, and then he kills them. That's actually awesome.
What was you going to say, Connor, about the red velvet thing before we
just that? No, I think she'll have a fine little match next week. Rose will come out at the end, be like, "Hey, I want that rematch," and that's how we get probably one of the bigger matches for All Out. Is because that they just been sitting on that. There hasn't even been so much as a match.
That's the thing, man. Like, we have got to be fair here. If All Out features Moxley, Tanahashi, Britt Rosa 2, and Darby Punk, like, I get just being like, Kingston will be fine out there with Kenny. They won't kill him, they won't boo him or anything.
The thing is, you still want that big buy rate, and you'll get it. But this, just keep piling on if you can.
I get that.
You've got bigger stuff coming down the road anyway. You've got Arthur Ashe. They'll end the year with Full Gear. They'll build to something for the new year. Go with everything you have right now. If this is supposed to be your WrestleMania, because I've always seen it more as like this one is the spiritual successor to All In, so it has more of a connection to being their big event than Double or Nothing does, regardless of venue.
Yeah, I would agree. And the thing that I don't like about it too is it happened at the last pay-per-views, right? Like Kenny on the last pay-per-view, as Jeremy pointed out earlier, it felt like he was like an afterthought. It's a great match. I love the match, the triple threat, but it did feel kind of, well, we'll do this. That kind of ticks a couple boxes. I think it's a problem, right? Frankly, I do think it's something they want to avoid. Kenny is framed as the greatest wrestler like on earth / ever on that show. His title matches should feel like the centerpiece of your pay-per-view promotion. I'm willing to let it slide if it's a case of CM Punk taking their eye off the ball slightly because it's a big deal. You don't want to get into a habit of this, though, man, and they're getting there. Like, this is too straight if it happens. So it's definitely something to watch.
I don't want the pay-per-views to feel like $50 Dynamites. And I understand you're going to get the big matches and stuff, and like it's cool and it's great. But like if I'm going to invest this TV time and you're going to continue to tell these stories and you're going to drop these Easter eggs and stuff, I want to put down my $50 and be like, all right, this stuff is going to get paid off here finally. Not like, oh, cool, you're just giving me kind of like a super card. Like that's great, but you can get great matches. Yeah. Like anywhere. I want to be rewarded for watching the television and enjoying the television by paying the $50 for the pay-per-view. That's just that's just how I feel about things. They've done this a lot with the pay-per-views.
These can't be Impact Plus events. These gotta feel like real pay-per-views. And the question of, because you two have brought this up before and I've always wanted to ask you both, does AEW let me back up. So WWE has a rhythm to how their year works. The Rumble sets you up for Mania in April. Then there's a lull period. Then it builds back up to SummerSlam. And then it's a lull for the rest of the year. Maybe something catches fire with Survivor Series, but usually not. But the fact that you know the rhythm of the year it tells the fans, hey, you should tune in January and you should really start tuning in March because that's when we're building up to our biggest show of the year. The fact that AEW has never come out, planted their flag, and said, this is our Mania. This is our Wrestle Kingdom. This is our Triple Mania. Like, they haven't said which one of these is their big one. If they did that, do you think it would make it easier for them to go, okay, this is our Mania, so then Full Gear is our No Mercy or Extreme Rules. It's not the pay-per-view, but so we don't need to have as lofty of an expectation.
I think that Full Gear, as much as I loved last year's one, I do think they see that as like the tier below the other three. The other three, I think every build they convince themselves that's the WrestleMania. I'll be honest with you, man. I think there's a lot to be said for being like, this is our one, but that promotion is so hectic and so new and wild and there's so much stuff going on. I kind of think you just be organic with it and like, you'll figure it out. Does that make sense? Like, there's so much moving.
Does that hecticness get fixed if you go, okay, we know what we're building to with this? We're not just going, this is hot right now, so put it on at Double or Nothing or Revolution. If you go, no, All Out is our Mania, so we're building to that. We might even use the pay-per-views to help build to that. Because like you said, with Double or Nothing, we had a world title match that really it was great, But there was no story behind it, had no real reason to exist. If Double or Nothing were positioned as that Mania, that wouldn't happen.
Absolutely, no, I agree. But I guess it comes back to the idea is that kind of chaos a feature or a flaw? So like in that scenario, definite flaw, right? You want Kenny to have something with more meat on the bone than that. And I'll say this much. I think when Moxley was champion, other than Brody, which had a lot of issues because MJF couldn't get where stuff was moving there because it was right at the start of COVID.
Right.
I think Kingston felt like, my God, I need to see these guys wrestle. I think MJF, to an extent, I didn't love all of that program. I think they got there. I think it's a very fair question, but I think this could be, and I've mentioned this myself as like a criticism, my own analysis, where my brain is the TV promotes the pay-per-view, right? And I think they see it as a much more 50-50 dynamic. And a good example of that is Moxley dropped the belt on, Winter is Coming, the Dynamite special.
Yeah.
Now, the key, I think, Connor, is what happens when they add these specials, these TV specials, these Clash of Champions style events. Mm-hmm. That could either add more balance or it could make the pay-per-views even less of a priority. That's the big thing to kind of watch as they move into this next, so I guess that's 2022 they're going to start those. So It's definitely interesting. I think it's a very worthwhile conversation to have, definitely.
I think when you have just 4, like they have, like all of them kind of need to be treated because, WWE kind of has their big 4. They've obviously lessened the value of some of them, especially Survivor Series, which is just brand supremacy nonsense. But back in the day, they had their big 4. They built to those. They made all of them feel different, feel special. Like I think that's what AEW should try to capture more than just, all right, let's make one our WrestleMania, one our Royal Rumble, whatever. Like just make them all kind of just feel special, give them all their own little attention because you only have 4 of them. You're using these Dynamite specials as special events. And now they're doing Dynamite specials literally every single week. So they're trying to make all of them feel special. Like Joseph said, they're going to have the new specials in 2022 that are like Clash of Champions. Like, all right, is this going to be like, are you still going to keep doing your Dynamite specials? Like, are you actually going to build to these? Like how, if you just make every week feel special, and they've done a great job of this. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah,
they're putting on,
absolutely.
Yeah, like we said at the top, like every week it just feels like this party and it's been great. But I do think, especially if you're going to charge, like you've got to make it, you've got to just reward that audience for being like, all right, I've tuned in, I've followed the story, give me the payoff here. The payoff shouldn't come on television, not when I'm paying $50 for this stuff. Yeah. Otherwise, all right, I'm just paying to see a great match. It's cool.
It's definitely one of those things that I think we're all adjusting to the shift in kind of the way these promotions make money, right? So like there was one recently when they moved Ray and Roman to SmackDown rather than the network, Hell in a Cell.
Yeah.
That like melted my mind as like just wrestling, but like it just made no sense to me. Then you kind of stop and you go, well, I mean, they make how much from Fox? They make and that's where you run into this weird problem. So I could say to you very logically, they make this much from pay-per-view, but their real income is they need these TV rights. And you could very fairly say that, okay, stop charging me $50 then. And then we run into this kind of brick wall where it's like, I agree with you. I don't think they have the answers fully yet. And the problem with that stuff is you're never going to hear, you're just never going to hear Tony Khan really talk about that openly because he doesn't want to make the pay-per-view seem lesser than.
Yeah.
But it definitely, if Hangman wins that belt after Ash, that will be 2 lengthy title reigns ended on TV. Like, at that point, what are people buying? I think they're getting great shows, but, it's a real thing for sure.
They're getting Impact Homecoming, which I was in the crowd for and did not see a single screen cap. I'm very disappointed.
That was a good show, by the way. I actually watched that. Jeremy bullied me for trying to review that on Twitch. I would like to know.
It was a great show. I really enjoyed it, Joseph. I had a lot of thoughts on that on Twitch. You didn't get the Sean Ross Sapp treatment where they put you on every 30 seconds?
So I'm not in the front row, but there was definitely a few times where the camera was looking right at me. So I was kind of like, hi. I didn't know what to do.
You should have. Sean paid good money to be on camera that often. Did you not? Did you not slip to more, like 100 or something?
No. Although
that was your mistake.
I have a great story from Slammiversary. So the venue. So I show up to the show after they've let everybody in through the lines already. So I show up to the venue. And the line that they had set up is tucked away over to the left side, but the Uber pulls me up to the front door. And I just walk right in. The door's not locked. I walk through another door and proceed to be with just every wrestler that's there. And I see Cardona walk by. I see Chelsea Green walk by. It's like, oh, they don't know you're here. And I'm just looking around, like I'm walking like I'm supposed to be there. Like I had like a collar. I looked a little professional. Like I had like slacks and a collared shirt on. So it's like, okay, maybe they think I'm supposed to be here. I eventually just go up to Tommy Dreamer and I go, have you seen Ross? And he's just like, yeah, let me go take him. I'm like, thank God, because I'm wandering around aimlessly. And here's Kenny Omega walking by. Please don't look at me, Kenny.
You did it wrong, Connor. You go up to Tommy Dreamer and you'd be like, so what spot are we running? You know Tommy's working. He's working all these shows.
And he actually did work the next show. But I was just like, man, how the hell am I back here right now?
That's amazing, dude. That is a great, like, the business has changed. Like, imagine how many barriers there would have been between you and the boys in, like, 1990. You know, and now you just, the door's open. Hello, everyone. Kenny, how you doing?
The only person I didn't see was Jay White, so thankfully that was not ruined for me.
Man. If you would have gotten a spoiler there. Yeah. Ribbon Blade says, does the roster bloat take away attention from youth? I assume you're talking AEW, only if they allow it to.
Yeah, it's up to them, man. I mean, Lee Johnson last night got over in defeat, and it's a matter of knowing your priorities. And if you rotate the roster as well as they have thus far, you're going to be okay. Now, I will say, and we talked about this with Cody, and I mentioned Kingston too. If you've got 100 possible stories, you're going to like some. You know, you may not be able to tell the Lee Johnson ascension as you would if you had 20 guys on the roster.
Yeah,
that's just it's to give a comparison. We love our basketball talk here, as you know, Connor. Listen. When you sign LeBron, Brandon Ingram's progression is going to slow down a bit. But you try and win a championship, like it is. You try to win at the end of the day. But it's a good question. But that's where I think they're at.
To answer the question, like the fact that they had one of their big four like welcome tour specials end with Ethan Page and Darby Allin, despite having all these other things happen, that's your indication right there that you know what, youth is going to be as big a part of this as Punk and Bryan is.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a variety, man. Joel Pearl mentioned that Bob O'Neill has been waiting for 20 minutes, which seems bad, but should we do it now, or should we just keep making him wait?
Just keep making him wait. He's been back there. I see him backstage. He's like rubbing his hands, like he's getting ready. He's like LeBron with the chalk, like throwing up and everything. He's like, "Come on, guys, I'm ready to check in here." There hasn't been a TV timeout, O'Neill. Like we're not doing intentional fouls or anything here to bring you in the game. So you just gotta wait. All right.
We're doing big picture Dynamite stuff. I'm going to just do one more here before we cross it off.
Okay, fine.
Do you guys like next week's Dynamite is interesting, right? They only announced 3 matches. Mm-hmm. And I love the Machine Gun Carl Anderson, but they're not like, they're not like, you're not jumping off jumping out your seat. Do you worry that their approach is, let's just give them like a steady Dynamite so then it can lay the foundations for an epic Rampage, and then the next week they do the same as they do Christian and Kenny. Maybe, do you worry that becomes a trend where they prioritize week to week one show over the other? Because here's the thing: I think we all agree, talent-wise, they don't have to. They have enough pieces to go around. I will say though that after 5 weeks of can't miss television, I knew they couldn't keep up that. I didn't think it was great to have the big match advertised being Jericho and Wardlow. I thought that was a misstep, frankly. So what do you think, Connor? Do you think that's something to watch with the introduction of Rampage? Is that something to be just a little weary of?
So I thought that because they had the 4 shows that each had a name. Right. And then they had this week's Dynamite, and I thought, okay, this is going to be the cool off. Yeah, Hoovy's here. And Alistair's making his debut, but this is going to be kind of a step back from that. And then the best thing of the night winds up being a 6-man tag match that they announced the night before.
Right.
And I went, son of a bitch, they got me again. This was great. So I'm not worried so much about them trying to take focus from one or the other. If there's a match on Dynamite that gets announced for Rampage days later, I'm not upset about that because I think that is how we get Kenny Christian. And hey, you know what? Get more eyes on the new product. But no, I don't think Rampage coming in is going to pull from whatever they've got for Dynamite. Next week's might be a calmer one just because, hey, we hit them with our haymakers for 5 weeks. We need to reload for a second, and that's just naturally how things will play out.
I agree. Go ahead, Jeremy. I do think they'll have to find that balance. And much like with the pay-per-views and then the specials starting next year, obviously the first Rampage, they had the women's title match. And look, we love Britt. Red Velvet hasn't been, I don't remember the last television match she had. Maybe
Yes.
someone like, it seems like Britt, especially in her hometown, that she's going to win that match, and it's fine. Hopefully it's a good match and everything. I don't know what else they're going to have on that. I think they'll probably have like another kind of big match for it because it is the debut. We know that Chicago show is going to be big, whether they're not going to advertise who's going to be there, but we all expect somebody big to be there. And we do expect like some type of big match. Like they're going to push Rampage hard coming out. Maybe that means Dynamite takes a step back early on. They said they're going to try to treat the shows equally. I do think they're going to have to try to find a balance between the two on top of the pay-per-views and then on top of the specials in 2022 because they just can't. It's almost not feasible to do what they've done these past 4 weeks of like, hey, we're just throwing everything at you right here. And it's just like the greatest television ever for a month. It's very tough.
It's not. You can't do, Nick Gage death matches to close every show. You're absolutely right. But I will say, they have acquired such talent, they can come closer to it than they should be able to, frankly. And especially if they keep adding, because if you can rotate that crew, is that the viewership?
Yeah.
Wow. See, that's when I say a misstep, I would want to leave that million people with a bigger hook than Jericho Wardlow. That's what I would say if I was being critical. But they're doing well right now, man. You can't. I mean, you can dislike the product, but I think it's at this point, if you're criticizing its kind of traction, man, I don't know.
Joe, the hook of this week's show was, hey, Malachi Black, yeah, he's that god from True Detective season 1 they were talking about. So be afraid.
Hey, that, by the way, I love that we talked about an hour ago now, but that is a hook in itself, right? The whole Cody, So you get a good point there. We should bring Bob on now, Jeremy.
All right.
History final bang!
Robert O'Neill is here. We finally got the foul. Get you in the game. How you doing,
Yeah.
O'Neill?
What's up, guys? How we going?
What's up?
We're good.
We're doing
been on
so
air for
good
the
that we
last-
delayed you for 23
Yeah.
minutes. So
No,
we're
it's
doing
been good.
great.
It's been a lot of fun to watch. Connor, how you doing?
Doing good, man. How you?
I'm good.
I'm sorry you have to deal with this, Connor.
No,
Connor's
no.
actual good person. He's lowered himself to a Robert O'Neill.
What you got
By the
for us
way-
today, Bob? Okay.
By
what
the
can you
way,
say, Jeremy?
O'Neill has changed. Can I just point this out that he changed from the pre-show to the main show?
Wow, that's incredible. He's got.
Yeah,
the-
no, I was,
Oh,
I
no,
was talking about
I've just-
wrestling on the pre-show, and I'm talking about basketball now. So I got my Bucks.
Oh my god, he's actually wearing that
WWE
shirt. Oh my god, that's disgusting, Bob. Do you want me to go and get my AEW hat and we can see it like great big fucking dogs on it?
All right, O'Neill, you ready? Do you have a topic?
I have NBA free agency and the Olympic basketball
Oh.
team. So really, whichever one you prefer. I mean, I'll probably end up
You
talking
got
about both.
3
but-
minutes. You talk about what you want. Here we go,
All right.
O'Neill.
History final bang!
Okay, so starting off with the Olympic basketball team here, they were bad going in. They lost the friendlies. They lost to France in the first round. So I'm like, I'm not going to care about this team. So I was home last weekend, started watching the Olympics, got sucked into them, and now here we are. They're playing for the gold medal tomorrow. But what I really want to talk about, a couple things. First of all, Greg Popovich, I don't know how long he's going to be the coach of the national team because he's surprisingly not very good at it. You'd think, it's Greg Popovich, he's going to be fine. But, insists on playing Bam Adebayo, who's not good, which might run into a problem tomorrow when they face Rudy Gobert. Someone who has been very good. Well, no, here's the thing, though. Gobert's been good. He was good against Italy, but they don't have bigs, whatever. But, who has been very good and is quickly becoming one of the best players in USA basketball history is Kevin Durant. Durant's the all-time leading scorer now. I know a lot of people don't care for Kevin Durant because, he went ring chasing or, he has burner accounts or whatever. Kevin Durant rules, okay? He's been good since he was at
Fuck Kevin Durant.
Dude, how was that only a minute? I left and came back.
O'Neill's done.
I was
Okay.
going to point out that I'm wearing a Wyoming shirt, so
There you go.
the brand loyalty continues.
Dude, this is getting screenshotted and like DM to Sean Ross Sapp. You really stand for this kind of bias on your show. I'm going to take this off now.
O'Neal, you can leave. I'm not putting you back on. No Kevin Durant praise on this show.
Yeah. He's got to stop backing Olympic athletes. It's gone poorly for him the last couple of days. But I called him out about it on the pre-show. But anyway, I guess it's the end of the show, guys.
Connor, let everybody know where they can find you at.
You can find me on Twitter at ConnorKCCB. I got my review of the first 6 episodes of Heels coming out this weekend. You can find all my work over at comicbook.com. We are covering all of your favorite geek and nerd culture, movie news, TV, anime, gaming, and yes, especially wrestling. Also follow me on Instagram at ConnorKCCB because I don't get enough love over on there. I don't put enough attention on there, but you should.
Instagram's not good. Don't even bother.
Oh man, Instagram's the best.
It's for all my gym stuff. That's I don't even mention like what I do for a living.
Oh, you're doing like workout selfies and stuff on the Instagram.
Well,
oh, now I'll
you know.
follow you. You got the thirst pics on there, Connor.
Oh yeah, I save them for my stories typically, but yeah.
Oh man, all right, I'm in now. I'm in. Joseph, you have any plug?
I guess the Patreon, right, Jeremy? We should say this, but we have invested like a month's worth of Patreon money into building that thing because we're going to do the StreamYards more often now, right, Jeremy? We're going to really, put our foot down and try and, as I said on Twitch today, we can actually win this game now. We should try to win it. And that's where I'm at, man. We're swinging for the fences. We're doing so much stuff. So we do appreciate all the support. It's been the last few months, man. Wow, what a ride the last few months been, both just covering this and also the support on here. So I appreciate all of that. It does mean a lot. I appreciate you coming on, Connor. This was great, man. You need to come back on as soon as possible.
Man, this was awesome. Thank you guys so much. And I'll definitely try and come back on when you let me. Connor, I won't have to cut a promo hopefully next time. But yeah.
You got to talk to Joseph. You just got to ask to get booked, and Joseph will book you. I will say, I'm going to out Connor here, and I apologize. Sean Ross Sapp, after Impact Slammiversary, he's like, a lot of people put over the distraction to me at Impact. I was like, oh, yeah? And he's like, yeah, Connor's a big fan. And I was like, well, Connor rules, first off. But thank you. Connor is an actual supporter of this show, and I appreciate that, man, because we feel we just do a bunch of dumb shit. So to have people like you like actually watch and support, it's great.
Of course.
So thank you, Connor. I appreciate it.
Well, you're very welcome. And thank you for putting on this lovely program.
Let's not go that far. We'll be on Twitch, twitch.tv/Fightful Gaming in about 5 to 10 minutes. Joel Pearl and Steven Jensen will be there the last time they'll ever be on Twitch because Impact hates Twitch now. And they've discontinued the Impact co-streams on Twitch. So we're going to let Jensen and Joel, have their fun one last time on Twitch. And then they'll just never appear on the Fightful Twitch ever again. So twitch.tv/Fightful Gaming if you guys want to head over there and hang out with us on Twitch. Guys, we appreciate all the support. We'll catch y'all next week.